All right, glad to have you back. You're watching Business Nigeria with Tolulope Ogunjobi, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company Limited. Sir Bismarck Ruwani says there are indications that the victory of Donald Trump in the United States presidential elections could have a significant implication for Nigeria's financial system and external economic position. In his recently released Lagos Business School report at the executive breakfast presentation for November, Sir Ruwani and his team stated that with the Economist Intelligence Unit projecting that Trump's win may strengthen the US dollar and lead to higher interest rates, Nigeria faces the possibility of rising cost of external borrowings and debt servicing. Energy markets are also trying to digest what a Trump presidency means for oil and gas prices, with the bulk of Trump policies are expected to be bearish for prices. The key upside risk is how the future president deals with Iran. Let's talk to a Managing Director, Chief Business Officer, Optimus by AfriInvest, Dr. Ayodeji Ebo. Good afternoon, Dr. Ebo. It's good to have you on the program.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
I think we should start with crude supply or crude prices or anything around energy prices. We saw today that Nigeria's production is again a bit on the high side, 1.8%. That's according to the NUPRC. 1.8 million barrels per day. But my question really would be, Trump's presidency and the energy market. Many believe that so many things might change. What's your understanding of it? What do you think this might mean for the market?
Thank you very much. And the first thing we need to first understand is the ideology of President-elect Donald Trump. His ideology is American first. So he would be mindful of whatever will lead to a major increase in prices for the Americans. So for crude oil, which is energy, which is a major input into their inflation, he would want to ensure that it's at a reasonable level. It means that the alternative, we will look for more cheaper alternative to reduce reliance on crude or on crude oil, such that it can spur increase in prices. So we expect that would be one of its major focus. If you recall, earlier this year, even last year, one of the major drivers of inflation is the energy cost, and that means that when you look at how it will impact on the economy or impact on the cost of living for the Americans. So we think that is going to be a major area to look at. So we expect that when you look at renewables, there will be more funding into renewables, more incentive into renewables. And that's why you see the likes of Tesla, those in the energy, electric vehicle, charging station stocks. Most of them are already enjoying that expectation that Donald Trump will want to see a way how to reduce the reliance on crude.
Well, let's take it a step further. Strengthening the US dollar might lead to high interest rates. Countries like Nigeria that are owing, and that means debt servicing will be higher. Can you make us also understand that? Does it mean that this might discourage, or we might have no choice, from borrowing?
Definitely, because we have exposure, close to about 40% of our debt is in dollars. It means that the more the US dollar gets stronger, the more the the Naira gets weaker. Mm-hmm. So the implication of that is that we will need more Naira to service our debts. And we're already getting, when you check the debt to actual revenue ratio, something maybe between 90 to almost 100%. So it means we would expect that this would also still have that impact even on the Naira. We will need more. It will be more expensive for us to service our debts as even the dollar gets more expensive. And, under Donald Trump, like he always say, American first, there are some of the aids, foreign aids that other countries like Nigeria, African countries may may likely enjoy under other dispensation, he would want to focus first of all on ensuring that they are comfortable internally first before trying to focus to want to help other nations. He wants to create the job within the American country. He wants to ensure that his people are comfortable first before even extending any foreign aid. Or maybe we want to talk about any debt relief across the African country. So these are some of the mindset that we think that the implication of the Donald Trump election.
Trade relations might be more restrictive. No, I didn't say that. Some analysts are saying that. And they're saying that there are likelihoods of some trade barriers under Trump's administration. If this happens, what do you think? What impact would that have on countries like Nigeria?
Yeah, so for us, we also import from the US. So it means that it will be also more expensive when we look at it from a currency perspective. But what we expect that will happen, we know that is going to ensure that their goods are cheaper to be more competitive. So we would begin to see trade war between like China. We import more from China than even the US. So there will be that competition. How can the US make their products more competitive such that we want to begin to import more? But what would be a major constraint to us is the currency. So even if it's cheaper in dollar terms, because of our currency, it may be also tough for us to be able to meet that demand. Secondly, where you would also know that for the Donald in terms of trade, we would begin to see that we would want to increase tariffs for importing things on other, especially from China, the Euro area, such that it's going to create more opportunities for companies that are US-based that produce domestically, so that more jobs can be created within the American continent. And this should also even be a lesson for the African. What are the things that we can also produce to generate jobs? Because we are always, when you import a lot, you are creating job abroad. So what can we also do internally that we can begin to add value to some of the things that we export? And by adding value, we'll also be able to create jobs. We'll be able to increase jobs. And once we're able to do this, insecurity would also reduce, because there's a very strong correlation between high unemployment, when people don't have things to do, and high insecurity.
Climate change issues. We know what we've been talking about, energy transition. Dr. Ebo, I'll take you along that line. Now, experts have argued that, well, Africa is not doing so much with regards to maybe contributing to emissions and all of that. And they're saying that they need to take advantage of the presence of crude and gas to a level, to an extent. Some say 30 to 40 years before they totally sink into energy transition. But my question to you would be, Donald Trump's government, what do you think would be his position around climate change, emission issues, energy issues, and all of that, some policy issues?
Okay, so I think that based on his ideology, he would want to favor what they have more sufficient. You would see that when you start with the production of electric vehicles. So he would want to give more support to companies that can produce electric vehicles, those that have charging stations, since most of all the parts that will be required for that can be sourced within can be produced within the country. But what we would also see is that it would, I think if we recall, even at what we call Trump 1.0, there was a time that he had to release fuel from the reserves to ensure that the prices of crude is maintained within a certain level. These are some of the ideologies, some of the ways that he thinks. He doesn't want Americans to be in a situation where the cost of living would skyrocket such that you see very high inflation rate. So any major driver of inflation, he would want to tame it. He would want to use the reserve. So I think it will still favor the two. You know, for renewable, while yes, there's a transition, but when you look at way to industrialize significantly, you still need the non-renewable, the fossil fuel, to even drive industrialization. So it's going to it's still going to take a bit of time. It's maybe small and medium scale enterprises, homes, that we may see that most people are adopting more renewable energy. And I know that's also another area where Nigeria may also want to work with the US is around the carbon credit structure, where if you are able to reduce the carbon or come up with projects that will reduce carbon, maybe we may also be able to access funding within that space. And before even getting the funding, the way I feel it will also view is that what are those things that we are also importing from the US? So we can't be importing from China and be getting carbon credits and incentives from the US.
Well, back home, before I came on set, I saw that crude oil production, that's according to the NUPRC, is now surging from 1.6 to about 1.8 million barrels per day. Well, that's according to the NUPRC. Well, my question to you is really just Nigeria is hitting OPEC's quota, if not even exceeding it, and of course, topping the leading countries in oil production in Africa. What is your outlook for this market now, focusing on many African countries that are doing so much in the energy space? Do you still see Nigeria ramping up production and staying on top moving forward, despite the challenges we face as a country?
Okay, thanks. I think it's a positive one, and I would assume that the 1.8 million barrels per day production level would include condensate,
yes,
which is almost maybe around the 200, 300,000 barrels per day. So if we look at exactly what we're producing, maybe we're still around 1.5 million barrels per day. And you look at the OPEC quota is around 1.7 million barrels per day. So we still have significant headroom for us to be able to take advantage of that, which would also have significant impact even on our FX if we're able to produce more. And we were hoping that there will be significant reduction. And I will know it's tough to say elimination, significant reduction in oil theft, so that we are able to, Nigerians are able to benefit from the resources that we have, even as a nation in our country. So that's in terms of the impact. It's when I feel that we're already hitting the quota. But even the Euro area region, the US region, they are also going to be mindful of a major increase in the price of crude because it has a significant impact on inflation. And we've seen that for most of those countries have begun to bring down inflation rates, bring down their interest rate rather, and any major shock to inflation, they would want to also guide against that. And hence why they are trying to see as many people they can move into or transit into renewable energy, that would also help reduce reliance on crude.
Mr. Ebo, we're done with this conversation, but just before you go, I'd like to get your thoughts around the impact. The Bitcoin market, we saw crypto doing so well immediately after President Donald Trump declared winner of that election. What do you make of that? Also, moving forward, the confidence in that market.
Okay, thanks. So even beyond the President-elect Donald Trump's
Yes.
pro Bitcoin or pro crypto, we also know that a lot of over 100 of the newly elected, even lawmakers, are also pro crypto. So investors are optimistic that there would be a lot of structure that we put in place, expecting that we'll also see more spot ETFs. So we can see the Ethereum because of the spot ETFs that have been set up. And you look at some of the top asset management companies, they're also showing that likes of BlackRock, the amount of investment they have, a MicroStrategy investment they have in that space. So we think that there's going to be more structure that would also be able to protect investors and give a bit of clarity and confidence within that particular space. I'm sure that even the US SEC now know that given the stance of the president, what they need to do is put a structure to preserve investors' wealth and ensure that maybe just the mainstream ones and even those that are coming into that space, they also understand the risks that they are taking if you are not investing in most of the flagship cryptocurrencies.
I must thank you so much. I've been speaking to Dr. Ayodeji Ebo, who's the Managing Director, CBO, that's our Chief Business Officer, Optimus by AfriInvest. Thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right then. Well, it's time to review.